tools buttons. This one is toggled off. So if it's toggled on, and I'll show you what happens if you click on it, then it's going to give you this sub-menu before being able to use the tool. Right? And so if you want to get rid of that step, which is wise, you simply go to Global Settings, General tab, and then just toggle that one off. Right? Because if you want to edit the tools anyway, you can just simply right-click, put your cursor over the tool, right-click, and then click Edit, and you can edit the parameters right there.
Don't touch my parameters.
Okay.
There are a lot of options there. Actually, we can go over that later with different things that happen on that general tab. And that might be a good idea. I don't know how much you discuss about SRV later, but we can also go through, like you have your treatment set up differently.
I do, yeah.
So we can go through,
Sure.
so we don't waste time tomorrow over saying that.
Yeah, it's a good idea, because it's a good idea if you have people already
Right.
have some familiarity with it.
And besides that way, you can play with the tools yourselves later on and get into trouble.
It doesn't take much navigation through the tools if you already have reasonable familiarity with it to be able to just pick up on it. And like my knowledge is fairly limited to what I use it for. There's so much stuff in here that I have no clue.
Yeah, well, that's how we started off today, talking about how a good charting package is going to be too much for any one person to learn. That's something I hear from people a lot also. It's interesting. It brings back some memories about that. People are like, well, I have to learn everything about that program before I can use it. Why? Don't you have a method that you'd like to focus on? It's
One thing that I will tell people when you open up a new software package, because you get to a certain stage where you've seen a lot of software packages, and one thing that I instruct people to do is I say, look, obviously they're going to have instructional facilities, whether it be a manual or videos with new charting packages, but I say, look, just go through the menu items and just explore through the menu items. So just look to see what each menu item has to offer. Just scroll down through them and see what they have to offer to slowly get acquainted with the software, and then just start exploring. The problem with the exploration method is that sometimes you get into situations where you've done something that you can't reverse, right? So that is a bit of a risk, but that's just something I encourage, whether you're dealing with Microsoft Word or whether it's trading software.
Yeah, but don't get them confused, because you don't want to try to write a letter in here and end up really in the hole. Okay.
Mark?
Yes.
Just a quick question. What time frames are we looking at for 3 different charts?
That's a good question, because I just was playing the top one up here.
Yes.
This is one of the volume charts I use for short-term trade execution in the Russell intraday. This is 500 volume, 1,000 volume. The third time frame on here is the 3,000 volume, which I don't use on this chart. I'm using the first two time frames, 500 and 1,000 volume chart data. Down here, this is a time-based chart on. This is 3 minute, 15, and 45. This is the chart we were just playing with the higher time frame MACD on top of it. Okay, so that's.
But the actual chart itself.
The data is always based on the own time frame, which is the shortest period. Three.
Okay.
Right. If I wanted to see both, I would have used the encapsulation. See, now what this is showing you is 3 minute bars inside of 15 minute. Okay. And there are ways that these can be used in writing systems too. You can tell the program, as soon as I have a 3 minute bar that breaks above the 15-minute bar, give me an alert. In other words, a breakout above a shorter term congestion period. So there are all kinds of things.
How am I ever going to get to that level to write for this system?
Some of those things are built in. The best thing to do, actually, if you want a real shortcut to learning some of the more advanced things in the program, go to, and I keep referring to the website, but it really is valuable. If anyone has not taken the time to do this, you really should. Learn how to trade with the Fibonacci Trader. 15 issues of the journal. There are 15 free journal issues that go into some of the really specific tools, some pre-programmed systems are in the tool, or in the program as well. I'll give you an example. Just show off this encapsulation. Here, this is one, Trend Finder Next, is in the indicators, Trend Finder Next. Okay, what this does is it shows you a breakout of higher time frame, when the shorter time frame is breaking out of a higher time frame range. It's exactly what I just described. In other words, here,
The encapsulation out of it.
yeah, the encapsulate, it basically uses that function. See how that looks with encapsulation. It's usually slightly, let me just change it over to one of the others. I think it actually looks better in the systems tool. Hang on. It's written up in the, here, Trend Finder. Now this will look a little better. This exact system is written up in the journal. This is how you write a system. It's all point and click interface. It's not like you have to learn a programming language or anything. You basically say, when this indicator is doing one of these things and this indicator is doing one of those things. Okay, so what I need to do is click use. Okay, here we go. Great. Yeah, this is not the encapsulation function per se. This uses a couple of the time frames lined up together. The idea is, again, it's breaking out from a higher time frame trend on a shorter time
And
frame.
you're showing us in the different color, the green as opposed to the red one that's current.
Right, exactly. It's supposed to, it's trend shifting. And I actually was playing with this for a while as just a way of confirming trend. This is not considered a complete system. This is considered a trend indicator that you would use, together with something to trigger you into the trade. As you can see, I'm not particularly familiar with the systems or the automated tools because it's just not the basis of my work. Some of the automated stuff is really good. If you wanted to, let me get this thing off the chart actually. If you ever want to take a look at some of the proprietary stuff, as I said, there's all the information in those journals. There are a couple that I have been working with, like, let's see, Dynamic Trio is one of my favorites. Okay, Dynamic Trio is one of the built-in indicators that's based on Gann's work about everything in price and time working in cycles of 3. And one of the ways you can use Dynamic Trio, as an example, is as stop placement. If you had a reason, basically, in a trending market, you can make a lot of money just buying and selling. Like with anything, like with a parabolic stop, it's the same idea. But the idea here, you know what I'm saying? It breaks the low there, triggered short. That looked really great, but in a choppy market, you'll get beat up doing that. The idea, what I was doing with Dynamic Trio when I was researching it, is simply get triggered in and use that as a stop. Because this generally will follow the volatility a lot better than something as mechanical as a parabolic stop, for instance. There are a lot of tools like that. You can build them into what works best for your trading by reading those journals. And some of these fib and Gann-based tools really do automatically adjust to the market a lot better than just some mathematically based formula.
So the first chart was the 1,000, 2,000 or 3,000 volume.
Right.
This chart was the 3 and the 15-minute.
Right.
What's the chart to the right?
This one's a tick chart, actually. This is,
tick chart.
this is a chart based on some values that Dennis Bowles was speaking about recently, and I've just been experimenting with observing his triggering methodology and how it was working in relation to mine. And this is actually 144 tick. Next time frame is 720, and highest is 1,008. We were using Gann multiples there again. And it's kind of interesting. This is a good example of multiple time frame usage on the chart too. This is Dennis's stochastic. He wrote his own stochastic. The Bowles stochastic is in the program. It's a double smooth stochastic, and it's actually my favorite stochastic if you're going to look at stochastics. I prefer, for me, the CCI speaks. If I'm going to use a stochastic though, or even have any interest in one, it's his. What you're seeing here on this one chart are all 3 of those time frame stochastics, all superimposed. So you can at a glance say, okay, we have markets going down here on higher timeframes, and we have an overbought and then a sell situation.
Sure.
And I stuck my 15, 14 CCI up here just so I could compare to see how my stuff was lining up with his. And it's pretty interesting. And so,
Middle chart again?
back here,
No, the sub-chart.
this one, that's just the 50 and 14 CCI. 50 and 14, yeah. Because, well, to me, I don't take it down to a 6 period if it's that short of a time frame. So I just put the 50.
Dennis's program, then you called it, what's it called in the program?
The Bowles, BOLZE, Bowles stochastic. Yeah,
And those three different colored lines are the three different time frames?
right, the 3 different CCIs. 3 different stochastics. Yes, that's what you're seeing there. And, I only know the most basic aspect of the triggers that he's looking at there. But you were in the room when he was talking about it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he visits my chat room sometimes and gives us trading nuggets. Right, Jackson? Hi, what's up? Lunch is here. Shall we break for lunch?
Here, show.
Yeah, and another thing, Linda reminded me to remind you guys too, that we're going to have those one-on-one appointments on Wednesday, and she has a sign-up sheet outside. So if you want to book your appointments, particularly if you're leaving earlier in the day on Wednesday, we want to make sure people who are leaving earlier and want to spend some time together with either Chris or myself, that you have an opportunity to. That's why we're doing it with that sign-up sheet. Okay, so let's hope lunch is good. And we'll get back to it after.
Much, so if you have any questions, please ask for any clarification as we proceed. But, I'm going to go to the SRV version, which is the version that I use, and probably a lot of it's going to be repetition to you, but maybe it'll just give you just some different ideas as to some of the things that I do in terms of setting up my charts versus Mark, because again, you all have your own way of doing things, whatever you're comfortable with, but hopefully, maybe there's going to be some things that are a little bit different, but probably a lot of it will be fairly similar. And again, we're going to start with where you've already loaded the software. And if we go to File and Exchanges, Edit Exchanges, I have my chart set up for GMT because in the foreign exchange environment, a lot of price or a lot of time references are based on GMT. Okay, so like a lot of, like from a global perspective, I mean, it all depends on I mean, it's important to know when the book moves from, like when the dealing books move from the institutions in Asia to Europe and then to New York. It's important to know those times, but typically GMT is a primary reference time. So I've got my charts set up here for GMT, which it's been so long since I've done this, but we have Forex. You'll see a little, you'll see Forex here, little arrow pointing. I'm at -8 because I'm on the West Coast, and it's right. Currently, it's 8 hours to GMT, and so again, my charts are set up for GMT, and I can show you why later as well. Because there are a couple other reasons why. Because for me, time of day is important. What time the volatility changes throughout the day in the foreign exchange environment, and I like to use it based on the GMT time.
GMT mean?
Greenwich Mean Time. So right now it's 1 hour after. It's 0000 hours 00. So right now it's 1 hour difference between London and GMT. Okay? But during non-daylight savings time, it's the same. Okay? So it shifts, but it automatically shifts in the software. My computer time is set on my local time. I don't ever change that because if you're traveling a lot or if you move from, you don't want to be fussing with that one because it will affect the charting software, and you may have a stoppage in the pricing gaps and so forth. All right, I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but So I'm set at GMT. And let me give you just a quick, I'll just jump over a little bit as to why I'm set to GMT. And you see here on this 60-minute chart, this is a 60-minute chart. And one of the reasons why I like GMT is because, and I'll get into this more in detail when I talk about the trading, is you see the vertical lines here? These vertical lines are set at 0-100-hour GMT. So what it does is GMT is typically one of the slowest trading times in the FX market. 0-100 hours GMT is very slow. So we have price consolidation through. As you can see, we have price consolidation typically right through the vertical lines. And what it does, it delineates the beginning of one day and the end of a day and the start of the next on a 60-minute chart. It gives me a nice view of the last 5-6 days. So, yeah, Rodney?
How do you do that, Mark?
The grids. Basically, if your computer is set up to 0-100 hours GMT, or sorry, the Fibonacci Trader software is set up to 0-100 hours GMT, so 4x, you go to 4x and -8. Then you just put the grid on, you go to grids, and we can do that. Do you want to see the actual, how we apply the grid?
Right.
Or, okay, why don't we go to that once we get through some of the more preliminary steps. Okay, good question. Because I always like to know where I am in time and space, and to see the broader perspective and also the smaller. Okay. So that's sort of my rationale of how I use the different ones. Now, so once you let's just do this. Let's go to. I'm just going to clear this page. So I would go to page, and then I would just click on in the page space, and I would just click close page. And what it will do is it should empty the page. Okay, so the page is now empty. And this one here must have pulled up.
Separate.
Yeah, just recently. It did. Okay, so we have an empty. This is basically we have an empty page now. We'll start a new page, but let's just go to File. Let's say, for example, there's a certain currency pair that I want to trade, and in fact, there are more currency pairs offered now. Carlos has somehow enabled it to offer more currency pairs now, and if I want to put in, typically on default, we have 4 major US dollar crosses, are the default crosses that are available to you. Now, if you want to add new symbols, like let's say, for example, pound yen symbol, what you do is you go to symbols, then you have 2 choices, new symbol or symbol list. Now, the symbol list is obviously a list of the symbols that you've already placed in the symbol list. But you can go File, Symbols, New Symbol. Then we go down to the symbol and just simply type it in. So let's say, for example, I want to put in pound yen, GBP, \JPY, and then it already has a default to the time zone and so forth. And then just click OK. Now that symbol will get added to, when I go back to File, Symbols, and Symbol List, then that symbol will get added to the list. Okay. And now, let's say we want to open a chart. Once we've created our symbol list by just simply inputting various symbols, and they have to be, I think it defaults now to capital. I think now it defaults to capital letters, but it had to be in capital letters previously, with the backslash. Okay? Otherwise, it won't pull up a chart if it's not exactly matched, capital letters and backslash. Now, if I want to pull up a chart, I can do it in several ways, as you're aware of. It's very similar, of course, or the same as what you do in your current applications. But I can go to my symbol list, view my symbols, and then simply create new chart based on that symbol. So if I do it going in through this way, if I want to create a new chart, then of course your create chart window comes up, just as again as you're familiar with, and then you can create your new chart. So what I would do is well, which chart do I want to create? I have a list of various currency pairs here, and I just simply highlight the currency pair that I want to trade, which, let's say in this example, British pound, US dollar. Typically, I will use, let's just say 60 minute, and I will typically use the next period as the daily and weekly, and then click OK. Pardon me?
You missed
Sorry, weekly, monthly, I'm sorry. So 60 minute, weekly, monthly. And then what I do is mine is still pretty much the default. My default is pretty much the pre-programmed default, because I have various templates that I will use. Because what I do is, for training purposes, I typically use a white background because it's very user-friendly, and I'll do videos. For my members and so forth. But I like, at my home facility, I typically like the black background because it's easier on the eyes for me. It's just softer on the eyes. My eyes are very sensitive to light, and I like the black background because it's not quite as intense. Because in foreign exchange, I can spend a lot of hours in front of the computer, depending on how many positions I have running, or I may have several different accounts that I'm managing, and may require a lot of hours in front of the computer. Or like if an alarm goes off at some odd hour during the day, and I'm crawling out of a sleep or something, I don't like to shock my eyeballs. It can be very, very difficult. So I typically will use the black. It's just my eye adjustment for the eyes is a lot better. But okay, and so here I've got a British pound 60-minute chart up, and again I came through File, Symbols, Symbol List, and as you know, you can create a chart by simply pulling up the chart list by clicking on the chart, or of course right-clicking in software, similar to what we did this morning. Okay. Now again, as I spoke about this morning, I think it's a good exercise to walk through all the menu items and explore what they do. Whether or not you use them in the future is up to you, but it's good just to do a little exploring on your own. Now, what I'll do is, so for example, here I have a 60-minute chart, and let's say that I want to create a 60-minute workspace. What I would do is this. As I mentioned this morning, what I will do is I sometimes, if we're in the intensity of trading at a certain time in the day, maybe you open in London or something, and I'm looking for a specific entry that I've identified in advance, because I like to identify my entries in advance based on several factors, which we'll cover. And let's say that I want to compare price action of several US dollar crosses, or the relationship between various currencies. What I'll do is I'll simply go to one time frame, and I like the 60-minute time frame as just a good reference point, because it gives me a nice view of the most recent price action. So I'll have maybe multiple 60-minute time frames up on one workspace. So what I would do is I'd simply go to my chart menu, and let's say I also want to have a Euro US dollar. Let's do this. Go to new chart, and I would highlight Euro US dollar. Let's say, for example, I want to have a 60-minute chart, weekly, monthly. I simply click Euro US dollar, OK, and then I would go to then I would go to, let's say, dollar Canadian, just simply click OK. And then dollar Swiss. Dollar Swiss, click OK. Dollar yen, OK. Now I've got, say, 5 60-minute charts on here, all US dollar crosses. Just waiting for the data to load here. Just click on F8 and set my template. There's obviously another way you can do it. Okay. Tile window and simply save the page as a 60-minute page. And then what I'll do also is if this is a 60-minute page that I'm saving, then I might put in there, if I have something that's specific about it, let's say a certain type of indicator that I'm using in this particular, on this particular page, that there's something on this 60-minute chart that is distinguishing as opposed to another 60-minute chart, then I'll, typically when I name the page, I'll put that change in there as well. So let's say, for example, I'm using the shandies, then I might just indicate that this one contains the shandies. Okay. And so then I just simply have a 60-minute workspace. Just for 60-minute charts. And let's say that I want to compare the price action of various currencies, let's say, for example, the pound and the euro, then I'll just minimize the less relevant charts and then just compare one currency versus another by just tiling the two pairs. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, for example, if I was trading, I would watch to see some of the relationship and the volatility between the two pairs. Okay. For example, the differences between these two at the moment are that the pound came above this high, dealers took it above the high and held it, whereas on the euro, for example, on the euro pair, they attempted to move above the high but failed to hold it. That's just a quirky little thing that I would look for. Okay? The pound has been more aggressive, but also we have British pound fundamentals last night, which also helped to assist in driving a stronger move. Okay, and so we kind of have. I'm just showing you a little bit of a different way of some of the things that we learned this morning with setting up the page as well.
Chris?
Now, yes?
My charts are defaulting to -7.
On Forex?
Yeah, Forex. I went to utilities, global settings, unchecked the local time. Is that automatically set it to Greenwich? Or is there another way to do it?
You uncheck, so if you have exchanges, and you go to Forex, it says -7.
Exchanges. Edit exchanges. Forex. Yeah, it says -7.
-7.
Can I change it to 96?
What is your computer time? Eastern Standard Time?
No, it's on local. It's on our local time here, 1:29.
Okay, if you go to now, if you go to File, Exchanges, Edit
Yeah.
Exchanges,
Yeah.
then when you go down, you click on the Forex. If you have like time zone,
Yeah.
should be able to change that to -8. Or sorry, yeah, would be, if you're on this time zone, -8.
It doesn't do it automatically just by unchecking that, because that's what seems to work for others. Just, in other words, nothing on here, just in the general tab, unchecking display local time on charts.
Okay.
Seems, I'm just wondering what the difference is.
Utilities, global settings, general,
Yeah,
and display local time on
If you
charts,
leave that
unchecked.
unchecked, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
Is yours checked or unchecked?
It's unchecked, but I just changed it to, I was able to change.
Did it change properly?
I'm gonna tell you right now. Let's see, after you change it, you just close it, is that it?
Close it and then reopen it and see if it changed.
it's probably one of those things where there's just a couple of different ways of doing it.
Changes. There's nothing here now. Let's see, time zone would be -8. And difference in hours from your computer to New York time is 3 hours, that's right.
Yeah, that'll just default.
Just close it, I guess, huh? Yeah, it doesn't stay in there for some reason.
It doesn't stay in.
Yeah.
Is that Carlos,
Sounds like it.
question? I know that there have been some issues, and I recall like some time ago I had a similar issue. I don't recall the details of it or how I resolved it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And for some reason, and I don't remember every time, because I keep loading this onto new computers, and I don't recall exactly how I worked around the issue. Okay. So another way of setting up, for example, we just created a new page. Another way of setting up a page, once you have your symbol list that you're satisfied with, let's say you have an array of symbols, currency pairs that you like to watch and are already in your chart list, and you may have already loaded specific time frames in your chart list. So for example, when you go to your chart list is going to show you every chart that you've loaded into a page in the software. So it'll show everything that currently exists in any of your pages. Yeah? So another way that you may be able to, if you want to customize a page, so let's say we close this page, and once again, this is why I like to know which page that I'm on, because I want to specifically close a page. I know what page I'm closing.
Yeah.
So what you can do is, if you go to your chart list, if I want to do a quick, let's say I want to customize a page with, for example, what I'll do is sometimes I'll do market reviews about twice a week, and I'll do analysis of the market, and onto a video. Now what I'll do is I'll say, well, today I want to cover these 4 charts or these 5 charts. So what I'll do is I'll go to this chart list, and I'll say, well, I want to cover the Aussie Yen daily chart. So I just simply click on it, and it shows up on the page. Or I want to cover Canadian yen and the Euro yen. So let's say I want to cover yen crosses today, and I want to cover the pound yen daily chart. So all I'm doing is I'm going through pre-existing chart list, and now I'm just putting them onto a page. Okay? And then I just simply tile the page, and the charts, of course, will appear on the page. Now I can just simply either save this as a new page, or just work with it accordingly. And then that way, for example, what I'll do is because I trade a lot on just understanding what's going on fundamentally around the world, and the currencies that are volatile at a specific period of time for whatever the drivers are, I'll decide that I want to, maybe focus on these currency pairs. So what I'll do is I'll create a page based on what I'm primarily focusing on. That way, it's more of an efficient operation for me. Okay? So then all you do is you go to your existing chart list where your charts already exist somewhere. You just simply click on the exact ones that you want, and boom, they'll move into your page. That making sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It just makes things just a lot more efficient. So then I can, obviously I can save this page, or not, or I can change it. For example, let's say I just, I'm looking at this Aussie yen pair, and if I want, on this one I have average, on daily charts I have average, true range average, but if I just want to just change whatever other, indicator formats I have on another template, I can of course just simply go into my templates and change that format. Okay? So, for example, an advantage to having this kind of layout is if we just simply maximize each of these pages, we can see, you see this big black candle here. We had a pullback today in Aussie yen. We had a pullback in Canadian yen, as you can see here. And all it does is it allows me to see where each currency is in relation to one another. We had a pullback here in the euro yen, and it just shows me some consistencies across the board, and it allows me to quickly view the price action on currency pairs with a similar base. So here these are all yen-based crosses, and because I'm heavily into the carry trade scenario at the moment, and I'm able to just watch the price action against all the pairs. Just gives me a nice quick view. And if you'll notice, from a technical perspective, the market, a lot of them really just dropped right back to the previous resistance come support in every one of these pairs. I mean, because I like these big pullbacks. So here's the Aussie yen, okay, the exact same technical level as did the pound yen. Okay, so I watch for these things, and this just allows me in a good user-friendly environment to watch one currency pair against another, whether it be a 5-minute chart, 60-minute chart, or daily chart. Okay, and you can just quickly customize these pages. So let's just make this page. You can just so we just save page as, and I would call, let's say, JPY dailies. Okay, and I've got a new page. Now, let's see here. Again, it's a long list of, as you can see, it is a long list of all the various charts that have already been loaded into the program. Mine can go fairly deep. Mark was talking earlier about how much data you load into the computer. I often will go fairly deep because when I'm bored at certain times of market price action is slow and so forth, when I'm bored, I'm usually scrolling through charts way back in time and so forth, and looking back at various histories. So for example, the other day I had a client call me with a real kind of exotic option strategy. It's a knockout option strategy, and it's a knockout based on a 12-month period. And this client said, okay, these are the parameters of the knockout strategy. Can you give me an idea of what the probability is or what the beta is on this being knocked out at a certain price within 12 months? So I needed to scroll back through the charts to see what the volatility was of that pair, and I just needed pretty quick access, and so I kind of do that quite often, and it's usually quite helpful, even if it's just 60-minute charts. Because whenever I'm bored, when you're trading, like I'm always scrolling through charts anyway, even when the market is quiet, because you'd be amazed what you find. Okay, so I usually often will load a lot of history on there, and it can be heavy on the computer, definitely so. All right. Let's see here. We've got indicators. Not much different from what Mark had instructed with you. A couple of quirky little things. For example, I will use the, and I just learned this from Carl yesterday because it was a simple thing that I had overlooked. And I was getting, because in foreign exchange, when the Asian market's open, it will record a certain limited time period for Sunday, so you only have a small amount of data for Sunday. And you can include Sunday and you can add Sunday to Monday, because typically we stay inside the ranges, Sunday to Monday. So for example, I use the true range indicator, and if you go to the true range, actually, I'm sorry, it's, if you go to utilities, global settings, and general, you can, I don't know, where is it? Is it in options? Add Sunday to Monday, it's in chart options.
Yeah.
So, add Sunday to Monday, okay? So that's gonna change the true range indicator somewhat, because it's gonna take out that Sunday. It'll take out the Sunday candlestick. And that way, because, for example, when it records the true range data, if you've got a Sunday with only, if your average true range on, say, a British pound US dollar pair is, let's say, 100 pips, and you have Sunday that's only got a range of 25 pips, it's going to mess up the data over the period. All right, so it's going to calculate that into the value of the true range. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? Makes a big difference. Hopefully I'm not jumping around too much for you. I'm just kind of drawing on some of the stuff you've already learned this morning and covering a little bit of it, but then also offering a bit of my own spin to it. Yeah, Carlos? Is it off, or am I keep hitting it with my arm?
I think it's off.
Has it been off the whole time?
No.
Probably.
Okay, let's go.
Just redo.
No, that's fine. I got some here. I got it. It's on?
It's on.
Now it's on.
Yeah.
Did we miss the whole thing?
No, I have it on the microphone here that got your voice from the back.
Okay.
Was low,
Okay.
but it does work.
All right. Okay.
My fault, I have to check it.
So, what's next? Now, indicators, I'm going to look through here to see if there's anything about it that Mark did a real good job this morning on pretty much covering the majority of the aspects of the indicators. And I'm not a real big indicator guy. It's all about price for me. And because I do combine a lot of fundamental aspects into my trading, however, the technicals override. Technicals are the ultimate determining factor of me entering into a position and then managing the position. So, but I'm not a real big indicator guy. More of a pattern recognition, and understanding a lot of the idiosyncrasies about the FX market from the dealer's perspective, from the bank's perspective. Okay. Yeah, I don't think that there was anything in addition to what Mark covered. One thing I do want to say about indicators is that there's nothing wrong with going into an indicator, exploring how it is used, getting an idea of how some of the different perspectives on how it's used. And if you decide not to use it, I mean, that's your choice. I mean, you can scroll through hundreds of indicators. I think it's a good contributor to your growth process of just understanding the markets. I think going through these exercises are healthy for you to a certain degree. And so I don't discourage at all that you play around with various indicators. One thing I do want to say is that independent thinking is the key. Okay? You can come to a workshop, learn specific methods, but once you go home, once you become an independent thinker, that's when your trading will accelerate. That's where your trading, for you as an individual, really accelerate and grow as you mold yourself as an independent thinker. Okay? I mean, I have people that I've trained that now train quite a bit different than the way I trade, but they are very, very successful in their own right, but they've created things that I think are quite fascinating and quite ingenious. And some of them do better than I do, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, so it's quite impressive. Because everyone has a different mind and a different way of thinking and processing information, and that's why it's very difficult to mold exactly, you can't create robots in this business. You can just, I'm always interested in listening to other traders because I want to understand how they think. Doesn't mean I'm going to try and do exactly what they do, but I want to, the more I understand how they think, the broader my understanding of acting with the markets become. Okay, so I encourage you to explore various indicators and things like that, and I think it's a great idea. So I think, yeah, like I say, indicators. I think we're pretty clear on that. I think, like I say, Mark did a very good job of going through that. In fact, I learned a lot from Mark this morning. So, a lot of these tools, again, on the subject of tools, as you can see, I've filtered out a lot of tools. So, for example, here I've filtered out a lot of the tools that I don't use here. And I just simply have removed them from my workspace so that there's more room, and so that I try to make things as visually friendly as possible, so I'm not straining my eyes too much looking for what tool I need, because it just any time that I'm causing, even in the slightest sense, if it requires extra energy or effort for my eyes. Because when you get into trading, you get into a rhythm, right? You're into a rhythm or a connection with the market. And if I'm having to spend any kind of extra seconds or fractions of seconds searching for a specific tool, it can sometimes maybe offset my rhythm or put a little bit more strain on my eyes. Because in the financial markets, when you're engaged in a rhythm of trading or just in a connection or rhythm with the market, for example, little things about your daily behaviors and routines, and even if it's that little extra strain on your eyes, like these toxins start to build up in your system, and you don't notice it. It's requiring more work, more concentration, and it just starts to disrupt your ability for that left brain, right brain superhighway to communicate effectively and stay in the rhythm with the market. So I try to keep it as user-friendly as possible for me, so it doesn't draw a lot of energy out of me. So I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit kind of combining this setup aspects with a bit of the psychological aspect, but I just think that it's maybe interesting information for some of you, because I view it as important. I mean, and I'm not, I wouldn't consider myself a technical guru at all, but I think that maybe my strengths are more in the area of psychology. So anyway, I try to clean this up if I can, okay, and just really put on there what I need. What we're going to do, maybe now we can cover the styles menu issue that we had a problem with this morning. For example, if I want to draw a trend line, I typically don't use the magnet. Let's say I want to draw a trend line, or Fibonacci tool and so forth. This trend line has a certain thickness, and if you edit, its current color is black, its thickness is 2. I can save that as my default, which I have. But if I want to change this, then I simply click on the styles menu. The menu appears, and as you can see, I've only got 2 choices: a thinner line and a thicker black line. All you do is you click on the size and thickness that you want. You go over to your tool, and when you draw it, it will come up in that format. Now, if you want to add another style and thickness, you can do so. As you can see here, I just right-clicked and I clicked Add. It adds another one. Then you can go in there, right-click it again. You can change the color. Let's say, a green color. And then right-click on it again, change the thickness to, say, 3. And now you have a new style. So you can click on this, pull up another line, and it will be green and 3 whatever in thickness. Whatever the measurement, the means of measurement is.
I'd like to be a few whatever's less.
So, again, whatever your visual preference is. All right? Any questions on that? That's the styles menu. Okay. And for me, because my charts are generally pretty clean, sometimes the 60-minute chart might get a little bit slightly busy, but they're generally pretty clean, but I usually use a thickness of 2, sometimes 1. The window is pretty straightforward. This is the current chart list, and I can, of course, just for quick access, the current chart list, and I use, for example, this morning we talked about this is a true range indicator. I do a lot of my trading based on true range. So, for example, if I want to see what the true range is at the moment, then I would just simply click on this show values, the $sign, and whatever indicators are present on your chart, it will show you the current value. And I would click on whatever bar I want it measured against. So, for example, if my true range value is 5, it's calculating the average true range over the last 5 days. And I would just simply click on whatever candlestick I want it related to. So this previous candle, the last 5 days, the true range was an average of about 65 pips, which is about right for this currency pair. Okay, and I'll cover that more as well in the sort of the theory and strategies session on Sunday. I don't know what else we've got.
Mention one thing.
You bet.
Thanks. It's totally, completely minor. And there's nothing wrong with Chris's chart or with any of your charts. I just want to give you a little tip that I discovered. You may remember when my charts were up. I mean, I didn't discover this, but when my charts were up, I didn't have as much space taken up with the title bars. Because, and I'm looking at all your charts, most of you are using Windows XP, and Windows XP is nice and decorative, and it has those big fat title bars for the program and for each chart. So if you have a bunch of charts in one window, you're taking up a lot of space with title bars. If you want to, and again, nothing wrong with it, but if you want to maximize the amount of space that you can actually have in the charts, and this is for any charting package, you change your display properties to Windows Classic mode. As a matter of fact, someone was looking at my computer and thought I was running Windows 98. But I wasn't. I had just changed the display properties because that gives you those thin title bars. And my computer isn't up right now, but if you look at my charts in the workbook, you'll see that it looks like it's taking up a lot less space with those title bars. And it just, it's not really a program tip, it's just a computer optimization tip. That will affect every program you use, including your email package, your browsers. It'll just take up less room with the decorative stuff.
Yeah, it's particularly handy if you're working off a small window,
exactly,
like on a laptop. I mean, if you're working off 19-inch screens or bigger, you should be okay. But that's a great idea, especially for laptop use.
Change to Windows Classic, you said?
Windows Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, like when we're doing the chat room, and I have all the, imagine how much more space it would take up if we had all those huge thingies. So it's just a really minor thing that I just
It's great.
was thinking of.
I'm sorry, would you kind of repeat?
Sure. Here, I'll show you.
Thank you.
It's changing.
And Mark also talked about fonts this morning. And for fonts, I like to use larger fonts. Again, I don't, it's just user-friendly, larger fonts. And you can see mine are pretty thick here. And also they're good for like teaching, like in this environment, so folks in the back of the class can see quite easily. And that way they're not being distracted from what's being said and so forth. So I use, you just simply left click on this column, on the price column, and then you just click on font, and you can just adjust the font just as you would in any other application. Okay?
That's great, I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, how did you do that again?
Okay, you just go to the price column here on the right-hand side. You right-click on it, and then there's a font button. You just go to the font button, and there. Okay, and you can see here as well. I mean, it says number of bars displayed on screen. You can change that to your, to whatever's desirable. But what I'll typically do is, like right now, because my computer had to adjust. The projector reads a certain what do you call it? A certain resolution. So it automatically adjusts the resolution. So this is slightly smaller than what I typically would use on my window because it's adjusted. And then therefore I would have to sometimes change what this looks like for you to view. But what I'll do is I'll typically just play with either the compression buttons, or as Mark showed you earlier this morning, the along the bottom you can move it. My hand sometimes is not that steady, so the compression button is a lot easier for me to just change it. And again, yeah, Rodney?
We're talking about price. Is there a way to set up price to let's say like 20s, 80s, 40?
That's a Carlos question.
So,
Yeah, that would be a Carlos question. Yeah, for trading like the pound or something.
exactly.
20s and 80s, yeah, and zeros, yeah.
My prices, a lot of my prices are underlined. Have you ever seen that?
Here,
Yeah.
let's have a look. Is this under effects? Is underline checked?
Effects.
If you go to right click on the price column, so right click on the price column, go to fonts, then there's a window there that says effects.
Yeah.
Is underline checked?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
uncheck it. Okay. Now let's go down to a 60-minute chart, because I want to talk about this compression again, the way this basically covering what Mark covered this morning as well. But I'll just show you how I would use it. So I'm just going to pull up a euro. I just somehow lost connection, it appears.
Anyone else?
I'm good.
You good?
It's okay. Nice thing about this is it looks like it's loading again.
Oh, momentary.
You change server.
I changed the server?
It does itself.
Pardon me?
It'll be fine. Catch up.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was just jumping over it in case it was the connection.
Okay. Still loading here.
Well, it's Friday, yeah, that's all.
Friday?
Yeah.
Market is closed. No?
Yeah.
Let's not lose him on.
So for example, this is a 60-minute chart on the euro, and you can see here the vertical line separating the days at 0-100 hours GMT. And these are pivot points on here, and I need to, okay. Now, for example, we are in this consolidation, this range, and obviously it makes things look quite messy and quite confusing, and it kind of draws up this disturbing feeling in your gut. And obviously you can scroll a higher time frame to get a better view, or you can just simply compress it, and I'll just use my compression mode just to get a quick view, and then maybe quickly change it back. Okay? Or down here, you see where it says TF? Down here in the lower right-hand corner, it says TF. Just click on that and you can change the time frame real quickly. If I want to move to, say, 2-hour time frame, you can change it real quickly. Okay, it just gives you just a real quick access to changing the time frame quickly and efficiently, as opposed to having to. Your other option is to go to your existing chart list and go to your Euro USD and try and find the appropriate time. You can do that, or you can create a new chart. But this just gives you a real quick way if you don't mind using, having the same template on that chart. Okay. If I'm dealing with a pretty clean chart, or if the indicator is applicable, the same indicator is applicable on the new time frame that I want to quickly look at, then I'll simply just use the shortcut. That shortcut version is the shortcut version that I prefer.